Thanks to His Highness the Crown Prince's golden words, there will be no beast tide this year, so everyone will have a good year. Next year, the princess will choose a good prince consort, and the commoners will live a peaceful life. Wang Shun spoke cheerfully. He had been in an exceptionally good mood recently. Originally, being a guard for his entire life, luckily breaking through to a third-grade martial artist and becoming a small leader was his lifelong dream. But now, he was already a fourth-grade martial artist and had many subordinates. The Crown Prince only asked him to deliver food once every 3 days to chat with him. Besides, the Crown Prince was an easygoing master, so he was content. After Wang Shun left, Li Yuanqing took a stroll in the wilderness valley like usual. Hu Jujiu and a Qilin that looked like a deer were following him. It looked at Li Yuanqing warily and hid behind Hu Jujiu when it heard anything. There were no outsiders in the valley at the moment. Li Yuanqing did not say anything. He just kept walking forward silently. Hu Jujiu was a little hesitant. She slowed down her pace and fell behind with the Qilin. When they could no longer see Li Yuanqing, Hu Jujiu suddenly slapped the Qilin's forehead with a furious expression. The Qilin bent its pitiful knees and knelt on the ground. It even lowered its head as though it wanted Hu Jujiu to sit on it. However, Hu Jujiu kicked it angrily. The Qilin's head shrank back in fear, and its entire body curled up into a ball. Its entire body was trembling, and it seemed to be extremely afraid of Hu Jujiu's wrath. Li Yuanqing knew that there was something wrong with the Qilin as well. Hu Jujiu was even more so. The reason why there was no beast tide this year might be because of Hu Jujiu and the Qilin. Therefore, he had to improve his manipulation art a little. A level 4 manipulation art already gave him a sense of danger. Hu Jujiu is severely injured now. As long as her injuries were healed, her strength would definitely not be weak. She might even be comparable to a martial saint. Therefore, his manipulation art had to immediately advance to the 5th grade. He was already a peak 8th grade martial artist and could advance to a 9th grade martial artist at any time. In the Northern Kingdom, even the Emperor was only an 8th grade martial artist, and he had not advanced for 10 years. Li Yuanqing wanted to solidify his foundation and his clear sky sword art to reach master level before he advanced to the 9th grade. That way, he would be stronger, so that he as a 9th grade martial artist could fight against a martial saint. System detected that the host has arrived at the hinterlands of the Wilderness Valley. Do you want to sign? Sign in. Congratulations to the host for signing in successfully. Reward: Intermediate Restore Origin Pill. System reward available: 1. 100 Intermediate Restore Origin Pills. 2. Sand Escape Technique. Intermediate Restore Origin Pill. The effect should be better than the basic Restore Origin Pills. Li Yuanqing realized that the elixirs signed by the system had also advanced after he reached the 8th grade. The effects were getting better each time. And this Sand Escape Technique? Li Yuanqing chose the Sand Escape Technique without any hesitation. Although the Intermediate Restore Origin Pill was precious, he was trying his best to suppress his grade. In fact, it was not difficult for him to advance to the 9th grade. Furthermore, he still had a large number of basic Restore Origin Pills in his hands. He could not finish it even if he treated it like candy every day, so the Sand Escape Technique was the most important thing to him now. Very quickly, a streak of white light flew into Li Yuanqing's mind. The cultivation technique recorded in the Sand's Escape Technique turned out to be an escape technique. This pleased the cautious Li Yuanqing. If he couldn't win, he could hide and run. With this escape technique, he would be able to run extremely fast even if he couldn't win. He would stay in this desolate land and sign in here at a leisurely pace. He would leave after he became a martial saint. In the following days, he ate Restore Origin Pills every day and then practiced his manipulation art. The Sand Escape Technique, especially the manipulation art, under his continuous practice every day, had broken through to level 5. Sometimes the Qilin would disappear, and other times it would appear. However, most of the time, it was following Hu Jujiu. Whenever it saw Li Yuanqing, it was like a mouse seeing a cat. It would always avoid him intentionally. However, Li Yuanqing did not take it to heart. Hu Jujiu had been infected by his inner demon seed. There was nothing she could do about it. Time passed quietly just like that. In the blink of an eye, it was the 4th year since Li Yuanqing arrived in the wilderness. Something major had happened in the Northern Kingdom that year. Prince Zhongyi had advanced to a 9th-grade peak-level martial artist. In the same year, Princess Xiaoyang was betrothed to Prince Zhongyi. 1 year later, the princess would be married to him when she was 15. The entire Northern Kingdom was in an uproar. When Li Yuanqing heard the news, he did not speak for a long time. He did not even take a sip of the tea Hu Juzhou brought him. Prince Zhongyi was already 50 years old this year, but he still looked like he was in his prime. He looked like in his 30s, but he already had 4 children, 3 sons and 1 daughter. He was also the highest-ranking member of the Northern Kingdom. There was no other reason, because his father and the late emperor had established the Northern Kingdom together. Moreover, he had always been the person who was most likely to become a martial saint other than the emperor. He was also the most powerful prince in the entire Northern Kingdom. Wang Shun sighed. Prince Zhongyi is the top expert of the Northern Kingdom. By right, he should be able to match up to any beauty in the Northern Kingdom. But, alas, His Majesty has already issued a decree. Perhaps this is a match between a hero and a beauty. His Majesty had already given his decree. There was no more repentance. 1 year later, Xiaoyang would marry Prince Zhongyi. He was truly his good father. He had not changed at all. A few years ago, his father had told him to marry the princess of the Myriad City Kingdom. After he was stripped of his title, he still wanted the second prince to marry the princess of the Myriad City Kingdom, even though he knew that this was a trap. All because it benefits the Northern Kingdom for the long term. In the end, a 5th-grade martial artist, the second prince, fell off his horse and died. Yet, his father did not learn his lesson. He only made the young 4th prince the crown prince, and then he wanted to marry Princess Zhaoyang to Prince Zhongyi. Prince Zhongyi had many children, and he was even a year older than his father. However, he was a 9th-grade martial artist, and his strength was even higher than his father. In order to win him over, and even for the sake of the Northern Kingdom, his father had actually decided to sacrifice his children again. Others might think that no one in the entire Northern Kingdom was worthy of Princess Xiaoyang, which was why His Majesty chose the most powerful Prince Zhongyi. Only Li Yuanqing understood. In the heart of the current emperor, there was no deep love between father and son. All he had was the empire of the Northern Kingdom. As long as it was for the empire of the Northern Kingdom, he could abandon the lives of his children. Why would he care if their marriage was fortunate or not? Bastard! Xiaoyang lost her mother when she was young, and he was not by her side. At such a young age, she was working hard to protect him and let him return to the palace. Since the emperor had sacrificed him, Li Yuanqing could only sigh and retaliate while hiding in the wilderness to accumulate his strength. However, Li Yuanqing would not agree to sacrifice Xiaoyang, who was stubborn and wanted to protect him again. Princess Xiaoyang's residence was actually the crown prince's residence that Li Yuanqing used to live in. They had not seen each other for 4 years. The 2 stone lions in front of the crown prince's residence and the fake mountain made of Taihu stone in the courtyard had not changed at all. If Li Yuanqing had not noticed that the acacia tree in the courtyard had become thicker and taller, he would have thought that he had merely gone shopping in Shi City for the past 4 years. Xiaoyang did not live in his original courtyard. Instead, she used the previous guest room as a place for her to rest and cultivate. When Li Yuanqing saw his sister, Xiaoyang, she had lost a lot of weight and was staring blankly into the mirror. Xiaoyang, who was originally high and mighty, was now like a flower that had been scalded by boiling water. She no longer had any spirit. Her eyes were no longer as bright as before, and her better face was covered in layers of gray aura. Xiaoyang's soul seemed to have been sucked out. When Li Yuanqing saw his sister, he felt that he had come at the right time. "What's wrong? I'm here, yet you don't even have a cup of tea?" A familiar chuckle stunned the dazed Xiaoyang for a moment. She thought that she was hallucinating because she was too sad, until she saw Li Yuanqing. All of a sudden, she dashed towards Li Yuanqing in surprise and hugged his waist. At this moment, Xiaoyang, who was about 1.65 meters tall, was slim and elegant while she stood before Li Yuanqing, just nice to reach his shoulders. Xiaoyang, who did not like incense, was clean and fresh. She did not speak as she hugged Li Yuanqing. She only buried her head into Li Yuanqing's shoulder. Suddenly, she raised her head and said firmly, "Brother, this is my life. The life of the royal princess. Father has promised me that after my wedding, you can return to the princess residence. Xiaoyang wiped her tears and forced a smile. However, she saw that her brother did not say anything and only stared into her eyes. He kept looking into her eyes, causing her heart to panic. Even though she could be extremely strong in front of everyone, when she looked into her brother's eyes, she could not hide anything. Silly, you are not a fish. How do you know what constitutes the enjoyment of fishes? I chose to go to the wilderness myself. I'm willing to go there. Did father force you to marry Prince Zhongyi? Prince Zhongyi is already the #1 expert in the Northern Kingdom. He has the hope to become a martial saint. Actually, he doesn't look much older than you. He treats me very well too. He was the one who proposed marriage to father, Xiaoyang was explaining to her brother. But when she saw that Li Yuanqing did not say anything and only stared into her eyes, she was a little flustered. When Prince Zhongyi was in the wilderness, he treated me very well. He even got someone to send a card of gifts yesterday. Father is very happy. Father forced you to do this, didn't he? Did you listen to your heart? I want to know what you think and how you choose. The more Xiaoyang explained, the more Li Yuanqing stared at her, wanting to hear her original intentions. However, as he was talking, Princess Xiaoyang suddenly lowered her voice and said sadly, Father said that the Holy Grandmaster has not appeared for 20 years. His foundation in the Northern Kingdom is unstable. At this point, Princess Xiaoyang could no longer hold back her tears. Although she was a proud daughter of heaven, how could she just sit by and do nothing when the Northern Kingdom was in danger? Prince Zhongyi was asking to marry the princess. It would not be impossible for him to snatch the position of the Emperor of the Northern Kingdom if he really broke through to the martial saint realm. Her father held her hand and cried in front of her. He blamed himself and finally made Xiaoyang agree to marry Prince Zhongyi. It was because the foundation of the Northern Kingdom was unstable and the status of the Northern Kingdom's martial saint was unknown. Who would be able to control him if Prince Zhongyi were to fall out now? Although Xiaoyang hated him for sacrificing a princess in exchange for the safety of the Northern Kingdom, she still agreed in the end. Thus, she didn't tell her brother and only made a request to her father. She could marry Prince Zhongyi obediently, but he would have to pardon her brother, Li Yuanqing, and let him return to the crown prince's residence. Even if he was just given the title of an idle prince, she would die in peace. Even if the foundation of the Northern Kingdom is unstable, that is not a matter for a young lady like you. Tell me, do you love Prince Zhongyi? Are you willing to stay by his side until the end of time, even if he becomes a cripple? Brother, the princess of the royal family doesn't have the right to talk about love. Father probably wants him to become a cripple even in his dreams. He even mentioned that he wanted me to make a move. However, Prince Zhongyi is at the peak of the 9th grade and the strongest in the Northern Kingdom. He has countless powerful soldiers under him. Xiaoyang closed her eyes. She had never dared to tell anyone these secrets. Secrets that pressed her until she could barely breathe. Now that she was facing her brother, she had no qualms about revealing them all. That was because her brother was her closest kin. In fact, he was even closer than her father. Oh, that means you don't love him. You're a young lady. Remember, you're the princess of the royal family and my younger sister. Be yourself. Marry the person you love if you want to get married in the future, and do whatever you want. The foundation of the Northern Kingdom shouldn't be sacrificed by a woman. Li Yuanqing caressed her head. Her black hair was smooth and soft, giving him a sense of authenticity. He had no intention of protecting anyone other than Xiaoyang in this world. Since he only had this one sister, she should live happily for the rest of her life. Li Yuanqing left just as suddenly as he did when he arrived. If not for the cup of hot tea on the table, Princess Xiaoyang would have thought that she was dreaming. Because it was too depressing, that's why she had such a realistic dream. Outside the imperial city, Li Yuanqing ordered Hu Jujio, who was kneeling on the ground, coldly. He's only at the peak of the 9th grade. How dare he touch my sister? Do not let him see the sun tomorrow. Go. For the past half a year, Hu Jujio had been consuming the Restore Origin pills. Her injuries were slowly recovering, and her strength had reached the martial saint realm. No matter how strong Prince Zhongyi was, he was only a 9th grade martial artist. He has not become a martial saint yet. Hence, to Hu Jujio, It wasn't difficult to take his life. So, Hu Jujiu kowtowed after kneeling down and left without saying anything. She had been healing for a year since she was being planted with the inner demon seed. But this was the first mission she received from Li Yuanqing. She was very afraid of this master, so when she went to Prince Zhengyi's residence, it was midnight. Many people had already fallen asleep, but Prince Zhengyi didn't. He is currently cultivating. While he was cultivating, there was a woman with a pained expression on her face opposite him. The strength of that woman at the peak of grade 5 was not to be underestimated in the Northern Kingdom, but Prince Zhengyi was still dissatisfied. She was too weak. She was not even qualified to be his cauldron. That was why he could not become a martial saint. Fortunately, he was going to marry the flower-like Princess Zhaoyang a year later. Within a year, Zhaoyang should be able to advance to the 7th grade. He would lend her a hand and let her become an 8th or 9th grade martial artist. Then, he would step on Zhaoyang's corpse and reach the peak of the martial saint realm. Who? All of a sudden, Prince Zhengyi stood up and found a stunning beauty standing less than 10 meters away from him. Although Prince Zhengyi was not a lecherous man, the moment he saw Hu Jujiu, his heart felt as though it was struck by a heavy object. This is because the woman before him was simply too beautiful. He had never seen such beauty in his life. There had never been a woman who was as beautiful as the beauty in front of him. She was so beautiful that it could steal one's soul. That was because this kind of beauty was like a vixen with a pointy face. Her entire body was emitting that kind of charm. Only an adult man would understand that this kind of woman was the best kind of woman that people could not bear to part with. Princess Zhaoyang was beautiful, but her nobility was not something that could be conquered. She was not as charming as the woman in front of him. Prince Zhengyi, who was the first expert in the Northern Kingdom, had seen countless women, but he fell for Hu Jujiu the moment he saw her. He only had eyes for her, and he also felt that this woman was not only beautiful but also extremely powerful. She was probably on par with him. At this moment, Prince Zhengyi had a strong premonition that as long as he turned this woman into a cauldron, he would immediately become a martial saint. Thinking up to this point, Prince Zhengyi didn't care who Hu Jujiu was. He only had one thought in his mind. He wanted to keep her, no matter who she was, even if she was a god from heaven. Even if he had to pierce a hole in the sky, he would make her stay. Therefore, Prince Zhengyi immediately thought of using his trump card. In Prince Zhengyi's residence, he had built a secret training chamber for himself in order to not be disturbed when he was trying to break through to martial saint. Even if the entire Northern Kingdom was destroyed, his secret chamber would not be destroyed. And when he was inside, he was the king. Today, he was going to use the secret chamber that he had spent more than 10 years of his blood, sweat, and tears to trap this woman before him. This woman who had almost made him lose his mind. Prince Zhengyi felt that the heavens had treated him well. The Northern Kingdom would be his in the future. And after tonight, his life would truly reach its peak. Unfortunately, after he led Hu Jujiu into the secret chamber and completely activated it, he saw Hu Jujiu give him a charming smile before sticking herself onto him. Before the joy on Prince Zhengyi's face completely disappeared, he had already fallen to the ground with his eyes wide open. He could only feel his cultivation being sucked dry by something. In the blink of an eye, he had lost 50 years of his cultivation. He originally looked like 30 years old, but when he took his last breath, he had aged to 50 years old. Prince Zhengyi's hair was white and his skin was wrinkled. He was worse than an ordinary old man. Hu Jujiu, who had just left Prince Zhengyi's residence, seemed to have become younger by another year or two. She originally looked like she was 20 years old, but now she looked like she was only 17 or 18 years old. Despite her flower-like age, she had a charming face. A combination of innocence and charm made her seem like a drug that could make people addicted. After she knelt down in front of Li Yuanqing and expressed that she had completed her mission, Li Yuanqing smiled and tossed her an herb, the green light ghost flower. It was something that Hu Jujiu had been searching for all along. Hu Jujiu's pupils suddenly turned into white vertical lines when she saw the green light ghost flower. She crawled on the ground and picked up the green light ghost flower. Although she was sprawled on the ground and could not see her face clearly, the ecstasy in her heart could not be described with words. Just because she could not speak now did not mean that she could not speak all the time. With the cultivation of Prince Zhongyi, the green light ghost flower, and so many basic supplementary elixirs, her injuries would recover by half. As long as her body recovered by half, no one in this world could be her master. She, the nine-tailed fox, was born to be a king. Prince Zhongyi died silently. This caused an uproar in the capital, especially the emperor of the northern kingdom. When he heard this news, he couldn't hide the surprise on his face. He even personally went to Prince Zhongyi's residence. If he didn't go and take a look personally, he would have thought that he was dreaming. Because last night, the entire capital city and even the royal palace were as calm as if nothing had happened. However, a peak 9th grade martial artist had died. Ha 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 ha. When the emperor of the northern kingdom spent over 1,000 people to open Prince Zhongyi's secret chamber, he almost cried tears of joy. The most troublesome person for years had died just like that. It was much harder to kill a peak 9th grade martial artist without alerting anyone than killing one in an earth-shattering way. It was a good death. Very quickly, the emperor of the northern kingdom issued a decree and raided the residence of Prince Zhongyi. Very quickly, they found a dragon throne, dragon robe, jade seal, and other rebellious items. People from the residence of Prince Zhongyi were immediately executed. It had only been a month since the princess consort was confirmed and Prince Zhongyi's residence had been completely wiped out from the noble families of the northern kingdom. The entire northern kingdom was in an uproar, and the entire capital was shocked. Initially, everyone thought that Prince Zhongyi was the biggest winner in the northern kingdom. Not only was he the #1 expert in the northern kingdom, he was also the person who had the highest chance to become a martial saint. He was also the man who was about to marry a beauty. Prince Zhongyi was 50 years old and Princess Xiaoyang was only 14 years old. Just as everyone was envious of Prince Zhongyi, he was killed silently. A few sects hidden in the northern kingdom were ready to make a move. When Princess Xiaoyang and Prince Zhongyi were engaged, they had already determined that the founding ancestor of the northern kingdom was no longer around. Because if he was still alive, he would definitely not allow the princess of the royal family to marry a 50-year-old prince of a different surname. Prince Zhongyi was also cultivating the crooked path. In order to increase his cultivation level, he did not hesitate to use women as his cultivation cauldron. His motive for marrying the princess was self-evident. Even so, the emperor of the northern kingdom had agreed. This meant that the foundation of the northern kingdom was unstable and was on the verge of collapse. A country without a martial saint would be destroyed or annexed at any time. Therefore, these sects had already gathered in the capital city and were prepared to wait for an opportunity to make a move. In this upcoming chaotic world, they would reap a lot of benefits. When the news of the death of Prince Zhongyi was spread, these sects were gathered on the Nine Palace Mountain not far from the capital city, discussing how to fight for benefits. Prince Zhongyi is dead? The martial saint of the northern kingdom is still alive?
Impossible.
We have been to the palace. If the martial saint is still alive, the people of the Blood Flame sect will not be able to come out alive. The sect leader of the Blood Flame sect, who was standing in the middle of the crowd with a ball of flames on his forehead, was in disbelief. Because their men had just scouted the palace at night and escaped unscathed. The Blood Flame sect was not famous at the moment, but it was famous thousands of years ago. It was because their chief sect leader and their holy land were destroyed by the founding martial saint of the northern kingdom. Therefore, for the past 100 years, the Blood Flame sect had been silently accumulating strength. When the opportunity came, they would soar into the sky and let the Blood Flame sect appear once again in the northern kingdom, shocking everyone. They had waited for hundreds of years. Finally, their chief sect leader was about to break through to martial saint. Princess Xiaoyang and Prince Zhongyi had arranged a marriage to show them the weakness of the northern kingdom's royal family. They felt that the opportunity for the Blood Flame sect to rise once again had arrived. Therefore, under their organization, many sects that had similar experiences with the Blood Flame sect were secretly gathered once again. In order to raise the morale of these sects and increase their cohesion, just 3 days ago, the sect leader of the Blood Flame sect, a peak 9th grade martial artist, and a few deacons of the Blood Flame sect had stayed in the palace for a night. They had even obtained many treasures from the palace. This time, not only had they managed to escape unscathed, But it had also been 3 days since the palace had discovered that the treasures had been lost while they were hiding in the Nine-Palace Mountain. All signs showed that not only was the foundation of the Northern Kingdom unstable, even if Prince Zhongyi was pacified and did not cause any trouble, the royal family of the Northern Kingdom had completely fallen. The martial saint was definitely no longer around, and the Northern Kingdom could be changed anytime. Over the years, Prince Zhongyi has killed many advanced female martial artists. Although he did it secretly, he always kicked a nail and was schemed against. He was secretly killed. It was definitely not the martial saint. After the Blood Flame sect leader pondered with a frown, his sudden words made everyone secretly nod their heads. That's right. The sect leader is right. The martial saint used his sword to shake the world. How could he have done it so quietly? This is definitely not the martial saint. The martial saint from the Northern Kingdom must be gone. Let's not be fooled. This is a great opportunity. That fake #1 expert of the Northern Kingdom, Prince Zhongyi, was already dead. Who in the imperial city can stop the sect leader when we make our move? Moreover, the chief sect leader is about to come out. When the person who spoke mentioned the chief sect leader of the Flame sect, he cupped his hands towards the north and was exceptionally respectful. That was because the leader of the Flame sect was in seclusion, and it was said that he was about to break through to martial saint. The Flame sect had been hiding for 100 years just for this opportunity to soar into the sky. The sect leader, who was already at the peak of the 9th grade, weighed the pros and cons. He then thought about the situation when he went to the palace 3 days ago and the strength of the chief sect leader. He looked at the people gathered by the Flame sect on the Nine-Palace Mountain. For a time, he was filled with a heroic spirit. The Flame sect wanted to become the national sect in the Northern Kingdom. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I will go to the palace and destroy the emperor of the Northern Kingdom. The Northern Kingdom belongs to the capable. The sect leader of the Flame sect quickly spread the news. It was different from the last time when he sneaked into the palace. This time, the Flame sect was going all out and even issued a challenge to the ruler of the Northern Kingdom. The requirement was on the roof of the palace's throne room in 3 days' time to determine the winner. He wanted everyone in the Northern Kingdom to see if the fate of the Northern Kingdom was with the Flame sect or with the ruler of the Northern Kingdom. As they had expected, the Flame sect, which had been lying low for 100 years, was once again known by the world. Li Yuanqing, who was about to bid farewell to Zhaoyang and return to the wilderness, could not believe his ears. The Flame sect, a sect that had been exterminated by the Holy Grandmaster 100 years ago, had actually revived after death and dared to stand on the roof of the throne room, wanting to compete with the Emperor of the Northern Kingdom? Funny. Even though the Emperor of the Northern Kingdom was extremely selfish and could sacrifice any child for the kingdom, he was the emperor of a country. How could he be killed in the throne room? Li Yuanqing went to Princess Zhaoyang's residence once again because this was the place he was most familiar with. Other than Zhaoyang and Hu Jujia, no one knew that he had returned to the capital. Princess Zhaoyang was wiping her armor. When she saw Li Yuanqing, she did not pounce over like the last time and only bowed at him. After the death of Prince Zhongyi, she thought that only her brother would take action to protect her. Killing a 9th-grade Prince Zhongyi would definitely be extremely difficult for her brother. Even if they were siblings, Zhaoyang felt that her brother would be able to accept her kowtow. Furthermore, she might not have the chance to kowtow to him again. Big brother, 3 days from now, I will follow my father and make a move. If the nest falls, there will be no eggs left. Take advantage of the fact that your reputation hasn't been well known for the past 4 years and go to the wilderness to painstakingly build your foundation. This might be the last hope of the Northern Kingdom. It's easy to die in battle, but it's hard to live. I hope that Big Brother will remember how difficult it was for the Holy Grandmaster to establish the country. I hope that he won't be able to wipe out the Li family of the Northern Kingdom. Zhaoyang had a tragic expression on her face. Although her cultivation speed was fast, she was still only 14 years old. Although she had the early wisdom as the royal family's princess, strength was everything. The Holy Grandmaster had not appeared for 20 years. He was definitely no longer in this world. Without the protection of the Holy Grandmaster, her father, who was at the peak of the 8th grade, would not be able to resist the Blood Flame sect. If her father died in battle, how could she survive? Thus, this time, she didn't call him brother like she usually did. Instead, she called him Big Brother. 3 days later, the Li clan of the Northern Kingdom would no longer be part of the royal family. Instead, they would become stray dogs that would be hunted down by others. Li Yuanqing did not say anything the whole time. He looked at the tragic Zhao Yang, who was determined to die, and revealed a displeased expression. Nonsense. If you really think of me as your big brother, then you shouldn't have forgotten what I told you before. You are the princess of the royal family and my little sister. You should be yourself. In the future, if you want to marry someone, then marry that person you love and do whatever you want. The Northern Kingdom doesn't need a woman to sacrifice herself. You are the princess. You are the proud daughter of the heavens. You're a young lady. Can't you be more unruly, willful, and selfish? Do I need to have a woman to sacrifice with me around? Grow some brains for me. I'm about to cry from your stupidity. For the first time, Li Yuanqing wanted to throw a tantrum at a girl. He even slapped Zhao Yang's head angrily. Stupid girl, what do you mean by dying in battle and living an ignoble life? You're only 14 years old. How can you live like you're 40? She was a princess of the royal family. How could she not live as well as a young lady from an ordinary family? She was so sensible that it made one's heart ache. If it wasn't because of hardships, who would want to become strong? His silly sister's life is too tough. Brother, you hit me too hard. You really hit me until I cried. Zhao Yang felt her nose sting. Although she had no regrets after hearing her brother's words, she pretended to be afraid of the pain in order to hide the bitterness in her heart and yelled at Li Yuanqing. When Li Yuanqing saw this, he could not help but call her a dumb girl in his heart. All right, he had to stay in the imperial city for 3 more days. The letter of challenge from the Blood Flame sect was found on the table in the throne room when the emperor of the northern state went to court. The little eunuch on duty was so frightened that his eyes rolled back and he fainted. This was a crime of executing 9 generations of families. The emperor of the northern kingdom remained silent and calm as he looked at the letter of challenge, the young eunuch who had fainted, and the ministers in the great hall who were terrified. After court, he did not do anything. He went straight to the scripture library in the imperial city and sat there for an entire afternoon. He was so calm that no one could see through him, but right now, his heart was filled with despair. He was certain that the founder of the Northern Kingdom, the Holy Grandmaster, was no longer around. This was because he wasn't in the library, and the place where he cultivated in seclusion didn't have the aura of a living person at all. He hadn't seen the Holy Grandmaster for nearly 20 years. Even when Prince Zhengyi forced Zhao Yang to marry him, he had come to the scripture library and even deliberately prayed at the place they had agreed on. However, there was no news of the Holy Grandmaster at all. He had already guessed this 10 years ago. The patriarch was no longer around, but he had to keep this information a secret. He had to find the guardian of the Northern Kingdom as soon as possible. A country without a martial saint would be devoured by various forces. That was why he wanted his talented crown prince to marry the princess of Myriad City Kingdom. He even wanted Li Yuanqing to stay in the Myriad City Kingdom because of the princess. Even if the Northern Kingdom did not have a martial saint, it would still be able to hold on for decades. It would not take much effort for the royal family to have another martial saint after a few decades had passed. However, that bastard Yuanqing disobeyed the decree and caused the Northern Kingdom to be in danger. Prince Zhengyi and the people from the Blood Flame sect had all jumped out. If they didn't have absolute confidence in suppressing the people from the Blood Flame sect this time, the Northern Kingdom would fall into chaos and the royal family of the Northern Kingdom would be hunted down like stray dogs. The Emperor of the Northern Kingdom, who was sitting on the top floor of the scripture library, looked at the bright sunset and thought about many things. Things were getting worse. He had to leave some backup. The third prince was slow-witted and had mediocre talent. If he was to go to the vast and abundant wilderness immediately, there would be a loyal garrison general. He might be able to save his life. The fourth prince was still young. He would tell the fourth prince to bring the royal family's treasures and a group of loyal people to the Myriad City Kingdom to seek help. As for Zhao Yang, he had found a top-secret place for her to cultivate. Her talent was truly rare. He would leave the empress, the noble consort, and pure consort in the palace. If they won, they would still enjoy wealth and glory. If they lost, he would personally kill them before he died. With his eyes closed, he calculated everyone's fate. Under the afterglow of the setting sun, the emperor of the northern kingdom returned to the palace and began to arrange for the war 3 days later. In less than a day, the news that the Blood Flame sect had issued a challenge letter to the current emperor had spread throughout the entire imperial city. Everyone in the northern kingdom was talking about the Blood Flame sect and the challenge letter. The strength of the Blood Flame sect's sect leader, who was at the peak of the 9th grade, had also been dug out. That was not all. Many people were saying that the ancestor of the Blood Flame sect had already become a martial saint. If the Holy Grandmaster of the Northern Kingdom were to appear, he could resolve the crisis. Otherwise, the world would not be peaceful. For a time, the people within the Northern Kingdom were anxious and uneasy. Many shops on the streets had already closed down and were not in the mood to open for business. They were waiting for the final battle 3 days later. There were martial artists who walked the streets, and there were even some who had bet about the great battle 3 days later. Every day the prefecture magistrate, who was in charge of maintaining order, had an incomparable headache. There was an undercurrent that surged outside the imperial city. As these undercurrents gathered, the atmosphere in the entire imperial city became strange. Everyone felt that something was wrong. The commoners, who were afraid of trouble, did not dare to go out for the past few days. This was because the number of martial artists in the imperial city had suddenly increased. Furthermore, they began to cause trouble. Every day, there would be bloodshed and provocation. Things were starting to look bad. Xiaoyang had also sensed it. She even knew that the 3rd prince had gone missing, and so had the 4th prince. Her father had sent someone to deliver a token to her, telling her to immediately leave the city and head north to find Shaoyang Mountain. The Holy Grandmaster was not here, so her father was not confident at all. Princess Xiaoyang felt a chill in her heart. She knew that her father was giving her a way out, but she didn't want to leave. As a 6th grade martial artist, she could actually hold her own. She won't leave, she will stay. However, before that, she had to quickly get her brother to go to the wilderness. Her brother would definitely be able to live well. The people from the Blood Flame sect would not be able to find him anytime soon. Xiaoyang was anxious, but Li Yuanqing was not. He was strolling around the Crown Prince's residence. His favorite place to stay was the library of the residence. That was because Li Yuanqing heard that voice that made him happy again. System detected the library. Host, are you signing in? Sign in. Congratulations to the host for signing in successfully. Reward, Basic Vitality Reinforcement Pill. System reward, available. 1. 100 Basic Vitality Reinforcement Pills. 2. Saint Extermination Stone. Vitality Reinforcement Pill. It seemed to be the elixir needed to break through to the martial saint realm. The Vitality Reinforcement Pill could protect one's origin energy. When combined with the Vitality Reinforcement Pill, it would yield twice the results with half the effort. These things could increase the chances of breaking through to the martial saint realm. Li Yuanqing was already a 9th grade martial artist, so he could consider making a breakthrough to martial saint. This pill seemed to have come at the right time. However, Li Yuanqing felt that his cultivation and foundation were not stable. He planned to only consider breaking through to the martial saint realm after consolidating his cultivation to the peak of the 9th grade in a few years. But when he saw the Saint Extermination Stone, he didn't hesitate at all. If this thing could destroy a martial saint, how powerful would it be? The foundation of the Northern Kingdom was unstable because it did not have a martial saint. That was why everyone was coveting the country. If there really was a treasure that could destroy a saint, then the Northern Kingdom wouldn't think of using the Crown Prince and Princess to exchange for benefits. The commoners wouldn't be fearful of the world's peace. I chose the Saint Extermination Stone. As Li Yuanqing made his choice, a pebble-sized rock soon appeared in his palm. When his hand touched the rock, Li Yuanqing could feel the terrifying power contained within. Furthermore, he could feel that he could control this power. However, Li Yuanqing was overjoyed when he found out the method to use the Saint Extermination Stone. Initially, Li Yuanqing was worried that the Saint Extermination Stone could only be used once and could not be used again after it was used. However, Li Yuanqing realized later on that it could slowly gather power and enter a dormant state after it was released before gathering power again. The Saint Extermination Stone had come at the right time. Hu Jujiu, the Saint Extermination Stone, and himself. The battle between the Blood Flame sect and the Emperor of the Northern Kingdom in the throne room was going to be very lively. The moment Li Yuanqing thought of Hu Jujiu, the inner demon seed in her fluctuated. The situation did not look good. When Li Yuanqing came to the capital, he brought Hu Jujiu along. A while ago, he had given the healing elixir, the green light ghost flower, to Hu Jujiu. She had been healing for a period of time before coming to the imperial city and got the healing elixir. Tonight, her injuries should have recovered slightly. Hence, the inner demon seed that was suppressing her in Hu Jujiu's body seemed to show signs of loosening. The situation was not looking good. In the backyard, Hu Jujiu was smiling with a veil covering her face. Her phoenix eyes were bright and vibrant, making people not dare to look at her directly. Furthermore, no one dared to imagine how stunning her face would be under the veil. This was the second time Zhaoyang had seen Hu Jiu. She had reminded Li Yuanqing to let her put on the veil because her face was just like a vixen who could bring disaster to the country and its people. It was too eye-catching. Li Yuanqing was a cautious person. He felt that it would be better for Hu Jujiu to keep a low profile before he became a martial saint. After all, her beauty was becoming more and more stunning as her injuries recovered. Hu Jujiu's red lips let out a musical note while her strength rose steadily. Even Li Yuanqing's level 4 inner demon seed could not suppress her. A level 4 inner demon seed could even control martial saints. Could it be that Hu Jujiu's strength had surpassed the martial saint realm? Li Yuanqing narrowed his eyes. After glancing at Hu Jujiu twice, he left quietly. He had to find a place to practice the Saint Extermination Stone and manipulation art. Even though the Blood Flame sect did not appear to be very strong, Li Yuanqing, who was used to being cautious, did not let his guard down either. He had to be fully prepared. Time quietly passed. In the blink of an eye, it was already the night of the Blood Flame sect's challenge. The entire imperial city was as bright as day. Countless martial artists gathered outside the imperial palace. Some even tried to enter the imperial palace. All the civil and military officials in the court were also on high alert, especially the generals. They were all prepared to kill the members of the Blood Flame sect. Princess Zhaoyang wore armor and was like a war goddess as she stood next to the emperor of the Northern Kingdom. As a 6th-grade martial artist, although she was young, she was really too famous in the Northern Kingdom. Her prestige even exceeded that of the crown prince, so when she stood behind His Majesty, she attracted a wave of cheers. Before midnight, the originally bright moonlight suddenly turned dark red. The air was filled with the faint smell of blood. Even the commoners were alarmed. Someone covered the crying child and listened in horror to the sounds coming from the palace. A few cackling sounds made everyone's hair stand on end. The sound was so loud that almost everyone in the imperial city could hear it, and the sound traveled very far. Within the imperial palace, a group of people blotted out the sky as they arrived. The person leading them was the Blood Flame sect leader, a peak 9th-grade martial artist. He was even stronger than Prince Zhongyi. One peak 9th-grade martial artist wasn't scary. What was scary was the 2 peak 9th-grade martial artists and the 3 8th-grade martial artists who came with him. They were the Blood Flame sect leader, vice sect leader, and their 3 deacons. This lineup caused the expressions of the generals who had been guarding the palace to change. Although the Blood Flame sect did not have a martial saint, their lineup was enough to move people. They did not expect that the Blood Flame sect had been hiding for 100 years and would shock the world the moment they appeared. The general of the wilderness encampment, with 100,000 soldiers under his command, was only at the peak of the 7th grade. The royal family had an old prince, who was the uncle of the current emperor. He was the strongest of them and had just entered the 9th grade. As for the current emperor, he was only at the peak of the 8th grade. The strength that the Blood Flame sect had accumulated for over 100 years was truly astonishing. Li Yuanqing, you have no virtue, no talent, and no ability. You occupy the position of the ruler of a country. It's time to throw away the title of the Northern Kingdom. The throne should belong to the virtuous. For example, the people of our Blood Flame sect. At this moment, The Blood Flame sect's sect leader was trying to test if the founding Holy Grandmaster of the Northern Kingdom was still alive. Therefore, he was extremely insulting and directly called out the name of the Northern Kingdom's emperor. His words caused the eyes of the civil and military officials of the Northern Kingdom, as well as the guards, to turn red with anger. The Blood Flame sect had gone too far. They even dared to insult the emperor. This was the death penalty for treason and the extermination of 9 generations. The Blood Flame sect was indeed arrogant, impudent. Kill. The emperor of the Northern Kingdom coldly shouted at the people of the Blood Flame sect. If he didn't kill all the people of the Blood Flame sect behind today, the prestige of the Northern Kingdom would be gone. Even if the Holy Grandmaster was no longer around, Li Yuanqing planned to gather all the experts in the Northern Kingdom for a battle and eradicate the Blood Flame sect. After he gave the order, 2 people suddenly appeared behind him. One of them was Li Yuanqing's uncle, who was well known to everyone. He was an early-stage 9th-grade martial artist. Although he was old, he stood there with a majestic aura. He held a huge saber that was more than 2 meters long in his hand. He tapped the handle of the saber on the ground and cracks started to appear on the ground. 9th-grade martial artists were so terrifying. A clown dares to cause trouble? An old man in eunuch attire walked out from behind Li Yuanqing. His hunched back suddenly straightened, and his turbid eyes turned sharp. The aura on his body was also rising steadily. He was in the 5th grade, 6th grade, and 8th grade, and he became a 9th grade. This caused many people's eyes to widen. This old eunuch had always been by His Majesty's side with his back hunched. It was said that he had followed His Majesty for decades since he was young. Who would have thought that he was actually a peerless expert? A peak 9th grade. Li Yuanqing stood at the highest point of this empty space. He stretched out both his hands, and the power on his body rose continuously. Intermediate 8th grade, peak 8th grade, early stage 9th grade, and finally, he became an intermediate 9th grade. He advanced 3 levels in an instant. There was a burst of cheers. The Northern Kingdom actually had 3 9th grade martial artists? The Northern Kingdom is going to be fine. Even though the Blood Flame sect had 3 8th grade martial artists, they were at a disadvantage now. Li Yuanqing's face was as cold as steel. This time, he wanted to kill all the members of the Blood Flame sect as a warning to others. Let the world see the price that had to be paid for testing him. Li Yuanqing made a gesture. Princess Xiaoyang, who was standing not far away from him, knew that her father was going to kill someone. She suppressed the nervousness in her heart. Today, she was going to kill the enemy. Just as everyone was preparing for battle, a long whistle suddenly sounded out. The first sound seemed to be 100 miles away, but the second sound felt close. By the time the third sound came, that person had already reached the edge of the imperial city. Martial Saint. Other than a martial saint, no one was able to move so fast in the midst of the 3 whistles. Meanwhile, the people from the Blood Flame sect had a look of joy on their faces. At this moment, they all knelt on the ground and shouted, "Congratulations to Sect Master for coming out of seclusion. Congratulations to Sect Master for becoming a martial saint. May you rule the world for generations to come." He was actually the Sect Master of the Blood Flame sect? He's a martial saint? Martial saint? In an instant, Li Yuanqing felt his eyes go black. The thing he was most unwilling to see had come. Why was the Northern Kingdom in danger all these years? Why did his crown prince fall off the horse and die? Why did Prince Zhengyi force the princess to marry him? The root of all this was that the martial saint of the Northern Kingdom was no longer alive. Without a martial saint, no matter how many peak 9th grade martial artists there were in the Northern Kingdom, they would only be able to intimidate some unknowledgeable and no-foundation forces. Although the difference between a peak 9th grade martial artist and a martial saint seemed to be only 1 level, the difference was like heaven and earth. As long as there was a martial saint in the Northern Kingdom, they would not be provoked or even bullied. Li Yuanqing glanced at Princess Xiaoyang, who was beside him. In his heart, he was thinking that although the princess had stayed behind, the 2 princes had escaped. This could be considered as leaving a trace of blood for the Northernly clan. Today, they could only die in battle without retreating. The soldiers guarding the palace, as well as the generals, all had ashen faces. Their eyes were filled with despair. The Blood Flame sect had a martial saint. How could they fight? They had to run for their lives. As soon as the martial saint appeared, the Northern Kingdom was in chaos. Everyone was in danger and was utterly defeated. Protect His Majesty! Protect His Majesty! Although there were people shouting, there were people who wanted to run away amidst the panic. As long as there was life, there was hope. The Blood Flame sect wanted to deal with His Majesty. As long as they hid, the remaining people might still have a chance to live. Just as everyone was panicking, Juju walked over slowly. She was wearing a veil, and under the moonlight, she looked like a fairy. However, her purity and her phoenix eyes reflected each other, and the two completely different temperaments collided. Those who had seen her before would never forget her. Those who wanted to run stopped because they saw the sect master of the Blood Flame sect descending from the sky and a white figure rushing up. Before anyone could see what was going on, a blinding white light blinded them. The sect master of the Blood Flame sect fell straight down, creating a huge pit that was dozens of meters wide. Dust flew in the air, causing people to cough uncontrollably. Only then did Juju float down. The eyes of the sect master of the Blood Flame sect, who was lying in the pit, were wide open, but he was no longer breathing. The sect leaders and deacons of the Blood Flame sect thought that they were dreaming. How could this be? They didn't see anything clearly from that one round. Their sect master had actually died? He died at the hands of this woman in white. Could this woman be the martial saint behind the Northern Kingdom? This was too well hidden. The Northern Kingdom actually had a female martial saint. Everyone was shocked, including Li Yuanqing and Princess Xiaoyang. She remembered that she did not like Juju. She always said that she was a vixen and even asked her to wear a veil in case her appearance was shocking. Mighty! A martial saint is indeed mighty. Someone in the crowd shouted. In an instant, many people raised their weapons and shouted at Juju. Their voices resounded throughout the imperial city, causing countless people to celebrate. The martial saint of the Northern Kingdom had appeared. The sect leader of the Blood Flame sect saw that the situation had gone astray. He didn't even look at the sect master that he had lost and immediately fled. However, before he could take 3 steps, he saw a white shadow flash past his eyes. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and none of the other 3 deacons managed to escape. Juju slapped them one by one. While she was killing them, the aura in her body was circulating rapidly, trying to break free from the inner demon seed's control in one go. Meanwhile, Li Yuanqing, who was still in Princess Xiaoyang's residence, had already sensed the abnormality of the inner demon seed. He snorted coldly suddenly. The level of controlling the inner demon seed immediately rose to level 5. Meanwhile, Juju, who was in the palace, suddenly realized in horror that the control of the inner demon seed had become stronger. Furthermore, her owner was displeased. She was extremely terrified and suddenly knelt down in one direction. That direction was the direction of Princess Xiaoyang's residence. Juju, who had knelt down, quickly noticed that the inner demon seed in her body had calmed down. She heaved a sigh of relief in her heart and quickly left the group of people who had been shocked by her. Kill! Li Yuanqing made a gesture, but his heart was in turmoil. Although he could not see the face of the martial saint, he could tell that it was a young woman. She was not very old. Even if one could only see her eyes, she was still beautiful enough to attract people's attention. All these were not important. What was important was the fact that the martial saint had kneeled at the last moment. This was what surprised Li Yuanqing. In his opinion, being able to kill the sect master of the Blood Flame sect in one move means that this lady should be the strongest person in the Northern Kingdom. She had the strength of a martial saint, who would have the ability to make her kneel down in fear. This was even more unbelievable than the sudden appearance of a martial saint. The few people from the Blood Flame sect were quickly killed. Not a single one of the people who followed them into the palace had escaped. The magical scene that happened tonight was unforgettable. There was another powerful being behind this martial saint? So powerful to make this martial saint kneel down? They simply did not dare to imagine who that person was. While everyone was feeling extremely shocked, only Xiaoyang's heart was pounding. She couldn't suppress the excitement in her heart because she knew who that person was. It's her brother. It must be her brother. Hu Jujio was his servant. It was normal for her to kneel down to him. Hence, when the Blood Flame sect members were killed and His Majesty issued an order to hunt down the remaining members of the Blood Flame sect, Princess Xiaoyang found His Majesty. This time, she knelt before her father. "Father, I know where that woman came from. She's from the wilderness." In fact, Princess Xiaoyang only had one goal, and that was to change her father's mind and to agree to let her brother return from the wilderness. He was the crown prince of the Northern Kingdom and would be the ruler of the Northern Kingdom in the future. The wilderness? Xiaoyang, don't speak nonsense. The wilderness does not only consist of the citizens of the Northern Kingdom. Don't tell anyone about this in the future. Don't mention that evil son anymore. There were many vicious beasts in the hinterlands of the wilderness, and the area was extremely vast. The Northern Kingdom couldn't do anything to them. They could only control the borders of the wilderness. After passing through the wilderness, they wouldn't be considered part of the Northern Kingdom. It was not easy for the Northern Kingdom to produce a martial saint. Li Yuanqing would never allow anyone to spread the news that this martial saint did not belong to the Northern Kingdom. What he wanted was for everyone to misunderstand that the Northern Kingdom had another martial saint to rely on. With this martial saint, those forces in the dark would consider the consequences of the Blood Flame sect. Only then would the foundation of the Northern Kingdom be stable. Xiaoyang did not say anything. She only looked at her father in disappointment. Her father still refused to forgive her brother. "Kneel." After returning to the wilderness, Li Yuanqing said coldly to Hu Jujio. Hu Jujio looked up at Li Yuanqing in shock. Her master was very strange. He rarely spoke, but he also rarely lost his temper. It was as if everything in his eyes wasn't worth worrying about. It was rare to see him being so strict today. The more it was like this, the more Hu Jujio did not dare to lower her guard and knelt down. If you are strong enough, you can just crush the inner demon seed. There is no need to test it out often. I don't like others messing around with me. Even though Hu Jujio had entered the martial saint realm after recovering from her injuries, that was just nonsense in Li Yuanqing's eyes. If she really wanted to break through the control of the inner demon seed, her strength was not enough. If there was nothing to do, it was best not to play around too often. Therefore, after Li Yuanqing glanced at Hu Jujio, he secretly exerted some force to control the inner demon seed in Hu Jujio's body. Hu Jujio groaned and looked at Li Yuanqing in horror. The pain in her body felt as though thousands of arrows had pierced through her heart. This pain was even more terrifying than when she was severely injured and on the verge of death. Hu Jujio looked at Li Yuanqing differently now. Her master had seen through her little scheme, and she could not bear the consequences of this backlash. Even though she was a martial saint, her entire body was still shivering as she laid prostrate before Li Yuanqing. Her limbs were sprawled on the ground, and she did not dare to resist at all. Li Yuanqing did not look at Hu Jujio anymore. Instead, he turned around to Cultivate. Even if his inner demon seed did not advance to level 5, he still had the Saint Extermination Stone in his hands. With these two items, even if Hu Jujio wanted to break free from his restraints, she would have to think twice. "Master!" The Qilin beast nudged Hu Jujio, who was lying on the ground with its claws, indicating that Li Yuanqing had left and she could get up now. This Qilin beast was actually Hu Jia's mount. "Go and take care of those children. There must be a king in the wilderness. I must break free from the inner demon seed. No one can be my master, my king." Hu Jujio's aura intensified as she said this. She could actually speak after most of her injuries had healed, but she felt humiliated. She was the princess of the nine-tailed fox clan, a king of the heavens, yet she had become a human slave. She would rather not speak for the rest of her life. It was too humiliating. However, just now, she did not have the slightest intention to resist. Hu Jujio despised herself for being so disappointing. As such, she wouldn't lose when the Qilin beast was to return and become the new king. May our king return soon. After kowtowing 3 times to Hu Jujio, the Qilin beast reluctantly left the valley. After it left the valley, it quickly entered the hinterlands in the wilderness. There were his clansmen and Hu Jujio's followers. Because he was the saint ruler's mount, he had supreme prestige here. The beast's tide was actually for the sake of helping the saint ruler find divine medicine to heal her injuries. Li Yuanqing paid no attention to all of that. He was still cultivating quietly. He signed in and let himself grow stronger slowly. A year had passed since he returned from the imperial city. During this year, the remnants of the Blood Flame sect were chased down by the Northern Kingdom's emperor with all his might. They were almost completely wiped out, and the Blood Flame sect was uprooted. This time, the Blood Flame sect had completely disappeared from the Northern Kingdom. The news of a female martial saint appearing in the Northern Kingdom had already spread throughout the world. Those restless forces had all hidden themselves again. Before they were completely confident, no one dared to test their luck. The Northern Kingdom brought about a rare period of peace, and the two princes returned to the imperial city. The third prince's fief was in the wilderness and was ordered by His Majesty to go to his fief. Thus, the third prince, who had pretended to be sick for a few years, unwillingly and helplessly went to the wilderness. When he arrived, he found out that the Crown Prince Li Yuanqing, who was crippled a few years ago, was still locked in that valley. The enemy of his enemy was his friend. The third prince felt that the common enemy of him and Li Yuanqing should be the Crown Prince of today. Therefore, he made a trip to the valley to recruit Li Yuanqing to fight with him. The third prince had caused quite a stir when he came. He felt that he was the king of this place and could not lose his status in front of his elder brother. Most importantly, his elder brother used to be high and mighty. Now, he was a prisoner while he was the king of this place. By the time the third prince arrived at the entrance of the wilderness valley, the two sides of the road were already filled with his attendants. The ground was also covered with a red cloth, and he was carried into the valley by dozens of people. TSK, my big brother, the conditions here are too tough. You've suffered. The third prince surveyed his surroundings and purposely clicked his tongue while shaking his head. Although there were not many buildings in the valley, it was very clean. Furthermore, regardless of whether it was trees or lakes, it appeared very grand. Li Yuanqing was drinking tea under a tree. When he saw the third prince, he merely glanced at him and ignored him. The third prince had been peeping at that spot, but he was too weak to see through it. It was a joke. The third prince saw that his eldest brother, who was a prisoner, was dressed in white. He sat there like an immortal, his bearing unparalleled. He did not look as miserable as he had imagined. He looked more like the king of the wilderness than he did. The third prince felt a little uncomfortable. However, when he looked up, his gaze landed on Hu Juzhou's face. His eyes immediately widened. He felt that there was no woman more beautiful than her in the entire heaven and earth. The third prince was stunned for a moment as he looked at Li Yuanqing, who had been drinking tea. He suddenly felt like he was the prisoner in this valley, while his brother Li Yuanqing looked like a king no matter how he looked at it. How could this be? He had originally wanted to show off, but that feeling vanished in an instant. When he left, he stared blankly at Hu Juzhou, gritted his teeth, and gestured for someone to snatch Hu Juzhou away and bring her back to his palace. He was the true king of the wildlands. This was his territory, and all the beautiful women here were his. Li Yuanqing used to be the crown prince and his big brother, so he did not dare to compete with him. But it was different now. So what if Li Yuanqing had an unparalleled aura? How dare a powerless and useless crown prince snatch his woman? Li Yuanqing received the news as well when Hu Juzhou was robbed, but he just shook his head. This third brother of his was really courting death. He even dared to snatch Hu Juzhou. Such a brother was really useless. He was too lousy. Li Yuanqing merely reminded the third prince that he had to bear the consequences of his own choice. Beauty is poisonous. Let go. Unfortunately, the third prince took that as jealousy. To him, it was a pleasure to be able to snatch Li Yuanqing's woman, even if she was his servant. The third prince felt that he would never have a good life. The eldest prince, Li Yuanqing, had been the crown prince, the second prince had been the crown prince, and the fourth prince was the crown prince. Although he had been conferred a title, his fief was in the wilderness. This made him sometimes wonder if he was the son of His Majesty. Of his 4 sons, he was the only one who had never been the crown prince. However, he was the person who wanted that position the most, so he didn't feel happy at all. No matter how his mother comforted him and said that his father doted on him, he still felt that he couldn't become the crown prince. It was all a joke. He wanted to do whatever he wanted, especially in his own fief. Therefore, Hu Jujie was snatched away. This woman was so beautiful that one couldn't take their eyes off her. When she stood there and didn't speak, she was dignified and pure. But when she looked at people, her phoenix eyes were overflowing with brilliance. How could there be such a beautiful woman? He had really picked up a treasure. Even if he couldn't become the crown prince for the time being, he would have a better sex life than anyone else with this woman. His older brother was really lucky with women, so that night, Hu Jujie was sent to his bedroom. But an accident happened at night. The wilderness, which had been peaceful for a year, had once again experienced a beast tide. Furthermore, the leader was the Chilan beast that was spewing fire everywhere. All the garrison troops went to encircle and annihilate those vicious beasts. No one knew that the third prince, who was thinking about their wedding night, was actually scared to death. There was no other reason for this. In order to please the third prince, his maidservant had intentionally put a white veil on Hu Jujie. This was the third prince's special hobby. According to the legends, that female martial saint was dressed like this. It was a pity that after Hu Jujie wore the veil, the aura she emitted caused the third prince's heart to race. However, he suddenly recalled that this beauty before him was definitely the martial saint. He dared to steal a martial saint? In an instant, the third prince's heart started to beat faster again. When he heard the cries of beasts outside and the female martial saint raising her hand coldly, he was scared to death. Hu Jujie returned to the wilderness valley before dawn. Li Yuanqing did not ask anything when he saw her the next day. He only heard about what happened last night when Wang Shun delivered food to Li Yuanqing. Beast tide. The beast tide was really too frightening. The palace that the third prince stayed in was burned, and the third prince died as well. It's strange that there isn't a single wound on his body. Someone said that he was frightened to death when his pupils dilated. As Wang Shun spoke, he did not even dare to raise his head to look at Hu Jujie. He knew that Hu Jujie had been taken away by the third prince last night. But the third prince was dead, so the garrison general sent someone to escort the third prince's corpse back to the imperial city. No one mentioned Hu Jujie, as if the third prince had never taken her away. When Li Yuanqing saw the third prince's corpse, he looked rather sad. He ordered his men to investigate what had happened. The garrison general's report said that it was due to the beast tide. The third prince's body was weak, and he had probably seen something to be frightened to death. Because the garrison had been resisting the beast tide that day, they didn't know the exact cause of his death. Li Yuanqing immediately sent someone to investigate. The third prince was indeed frightened to death. This prince was really too cowardly. However, he was still his son after all. Li Yuanqing still got someone to bury him. However, when the third prince was buried, something big suddenly happened in the crown prince's mansion. The crown prince suddenly fell unconscious, while the little eunuch who was serving him committed suicide and was discovered. The emperor was furious. After a round of investigation, he realized that this little eunuch was actually the third prince's sacrificial soldier. He was the one who arranged for him to be by the crown prince's side. Back then, they had agreed to kill the crown prince if anything happened to him. Under the wrath of the emperor, he ordered his men to try their best to save the crown prince. However, they only managed to save his life. His meridians and body were all spoiled, and his body was even weaker than an ordinary person. It was already a blessing to be able to breathe. Li Yuanqing seemed to have aged 10 years in just one night. He originally had 4 princes. One was crippled, 2 were dead, and 1 was injured. For a time, the kingdom was actually facing a situation where there was no successor. At this moment, Princess Xiaoyang came to see her father. She knelt down and bowed to Li Yuanqing. "Father, brother is in the wilderness, and his strength is even stronger than before. He is the best candidate for crown prince. I beg you to let him return to the palace as soon as possible." At this moment, Princess Xiaoyang had a slender figure and an elegant aura. She was already at the peak of the 6th grade. Even though she was kneeling in front of Li Yuanqing, she was still very graceful. Don't mention that unfilial son again. Li Yuanqing, who was extremely frustrated in his heart, suddenly raised his voice and angrily smashed the inkstone on the table. Countless pieces of the inkstone flew up, and some of them flew towards Princess Xiaoyang's face. The peak 6th grade martial artist, Xiaoyang, closed her eyes at this time. She allowed the scraps to fall on her face, but her heart was completely disappointed. She had always remembered her promise to her brother all these years. She wanted her brother to return to the palace. No matter how fast her improvement was, even when she agreed to the arrangement that her father had made for her to marry Prince Zhongyi, she only had one request, and that was for her brother to return to the palace. Even when the third prince had caused the second prince to become a cripple for his entire life, even when the fourth prince had done many dirty things in the dark, even snatching the beauties of the common people and forcing them to their deaths, her father pretended not to notice. He gave the third prince an elaborate and continued to raise the fourth prince. However, her brother had merely disobeyed his orders. Yet, he had rejected her countless times, calling him an unfilial son. Princess Zhaoyang finally understood that her father was not a good father. He would sacrifice her and her brother for the sake of the kingdom. He has feelings for the other princes. However, he did not feel any warmth or fatherly love towards her brother. She wanted to be the crown princess. She wanted to be the ruler of the northern kingdom. Only by doing so would she be able to fulfill her promise to her brother. She wanted him to return to the palace in front of everyone. This was his home. He was the true owner of the northern kingdom. Zhaoyang, why didn't you dodge? Li Yuanqing saw the cut on Princess Zhaoyang's face. The cut was between her eyebrows. As a peak 6th grade martial artist, she would only be injured by the cut unless she did not want to avoid it. Your Majesty, I want to be the crown princess. Zhaoyang, who had already thought everything through, knelt down to Li Yuanqing once again. Her tone was unusually calm, as if she was saying that the weather was good today, because she had already made up her mind and would not change it. The Northern Kingdom has never had a crown princess. I know, there will be one since me. Princess Zhaoyang was extremely intelligent and had an unparalleled temperament. She was the most competent princess in the Northern Kingdom. But so what? There was no precedent of women being officials in the Northern Kingdom. It has always been the case of men being superior to women. Even if you were a princess, most of the time, you would marry someone useful to the royal family. For example, the eldest princess of the past. For example, Zhaoyang, who was once betrothed to Prince Zhongyi. Thus, when Princess Zhaoyang proposed that she become the crown princess, many people in the court praised her and opposed her. There has never been such a precedent in the Northern Kingdom. The kingdom will be in chaos if a woman meddles in politics. There's still a crown prince in the Northern Kingdom. Why would he want to make a crown princess? In an instant, the entire court was against Princess Zhaoyang becoming the crown princess. Even His Majesty had promised in front of all the officials that he would never give the throne to Princess Zhaoyang. They wouldn't allow any woman to meddle in politics. Although the crown prince was weak, it was still possible for him to retain some people to assist him. Because of this, Li Yuanqing started to choose a consort for the crown prince in the Northern Kingdom. He wanted the crown prince to get married early and give birth to a grandchild to continue the Li family's bloodline. The commoners were also stunned by Princess Zhaoyang's suggestion. In any case, no one had heard of a crown princess before. What would happen if the great empress really appeared in the Northern Kingdom? It was unbelievable. In any case, the commoners felt that it was too absurd. No one stood on Zhaoyang's side. His Majesty even grounded Princess Zhaoyang and ordered the entire country that he will be selecting a prince consort. The prince consort must be at least a 7th grade martial artist. He didn't care about age or background. As long as one was strong enough, the stronger the better. Within a month, the news about Zhaoyang spread throughout the entire Northern Kingdom and Li Yuanqing heard about it. Crown princess? Li Yuanqing gave a rare smile. He had always thought that Zhaoyang was not willful enough and had always been terrifyingly sensible since she was young. But now, she has come up with something like crown princess. If the girl liked it, then let her be. She was his only sister. Li Yuanqing felt that it was only right for her to be pampered and be a little willful. However, when Wang Shun delivered the food to Li Yuanqing, he said that Princess Zhaoyang was grounded by His Majesty. Furthermore, the entire country started selecting a prince consort for the princess. There was no age restriction or status restriction. As long as one was strong enough, they could marry the princess. Now, all the high-level martial artists in the Northern Kingdom had gone crazy. Everyone was signing up. After all, besides the fact that Princess Xiaoyang came up with the crown princess nonsense, she was a true proud daughter of heaven, a 16-year-old peak 6th grade martial artist. Even in the entire world, this was a very rare sight. Moreover, Princess Xiaoyang's youthful beauty was unparalleled. She was the best goddess in every man's heart. Li Yuanqing's face turned cold. The emperor of the Northern Kingdom had already sold Princess Xiaoyang out once, and now he was using her marriage as an excuse. There was no restriction on age and family background. If she met someone with evil intentions, like Prince Zhongyi, he would harm Princess Xiaoyang again. Li Yuanqing could give up the crown prince position of the Northern Kingdom and pursue martial arts wholeheartedly. However, he could not give up on Princess Xiaoyang. She was the person who relied on him the most in this world. Although the emperor of the Northern Kingdom was his father, he didn't want to say too much. They were once fated to be father and son. Since they had already separated, he didn't want to have too much involvement. However, Xiaoyang was different. This foolish younger sister who wanted to protect him was too foolish. He only hoped that she would be happy and safe for the rest of her life. In fact, in the entire Northern Kingdom, there is no one more suitable than Xiaoyang to inherit the throne. It is quite good for her to be the crown princess. Since she wants to be the crown princess, how can she be sloppy in choosing her husband? Naturally, she has to choose herself. Li Yuanqing sipped his tea and spoke slowly. Wang Shun was stunned. Actually, the crown prince in front of him was the most suitable person to inherit the throne in the Northern Kingdom. However, Wang Shun naturally had no objections to his words. Princess Xiaoyang is naturally very good. She is so young and so talented. It is a pity that His Majesty doesn't really dote on her. If someone had such a daughter, it would be a blessing from his previous life. She would be able to bring honor to the family. Wang Shun sighed. Even someone like him felt that His Majesty didn't really dote on Princess Xiaoyang. The imperial power was already above kinship. It was also because of the place that he dared to say this. If it was any other place, who dared to say that His Majesty made a mistake? That would be treason and the punishment of 9 generations. Yes, a daughter like Xiaoyang can bring glory to her family. Ha ha ha, she will become the first great empress of the Northern Kingdom.
Li Yuanqing suddenly lauga.
While he was hiding in this desolate land, he had secretly signed in to accumulate his strength. He was looking forward to soaring into the skies and conveniently helping his sister. This would also make him happy. So after Wang Shun left, Li Yuanqing called Hu Jujiu over. I know about the third prince's matter. He only has himself to blame. You can go and follow Princess Xiaoyang in the future. Make her the crown princess and the first great empress of the Northern Kingdom. If you dare to have any thoughts, I can take your life even if it is thousands of miles away. Hu Jujiu knelt on the ground, prostrating on the ground, not daring to have any other thoughts. This master was both terrifying and indignant. However, she did not dare to say anything at this moment. She had to silently accumulate her strength and truly attack the inner demon seed. How could she, a princess of the 9-tailed fox clan, be a slave to a human? How shameful. However, her master was not attracted by her charming face. Sometimes, she even wondered what was wrong with her master. She wanted to cry because it was too shameful. Just like that, Hu Jujiu went to the imperial city under Li Yuanqing's order and followed behind Princess Xiaoyang, becoming her bodyguard. The moment she saw the veiled Hu Jujiu, the strong Princess Xiaoyang's eyes became moist. Her brother was the person who treated her the best. Such a powerful martial saint was sent to her side. So when Xiaoyang saw Hu Jujiu, she knew what she had to do. Her brother had sent Hu Jujiu to support her idea. She wanted to be the crown princess and the great empress of the Northern Kingdom. Only by becoming the great empress would the Northern Kingdom be considered her brother's. She was merely managing it on his behalf because she was completely disappointed in her father. When Princess Xiaoyang walked out of the princess's residence during the royal court, she was stopped by the guards at the gate. Impudent! Princess Xiaoyang reprimanded. Hu Jujiu stood behind her. The guard leader, who had rushed over after hearing the news, felt a powerful aura and his knees went weak as he knelt on the ground. This was the first time Princess Xiaoyang brought Hu Jujiu step by step towards the palace. She walked towards the path she had already decided on. No matter how tough and thorny that path was, she was fearless because of her brother's support.